Welcome to DVC Alumni, where every story inspires the next. The Alumni podcast where you get to hear the inspiring stories and transformation that DVC has had to offer its alumni. And now, on with the episode.
All right, and we are live. And today, this is a little bit of a different one for our alumni podcast. We have with us Eden Foley. She is the...
Sorry, I use they, them pronouns.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. They, them. Okay.
Yeah.
So we have Eden Foley. They are librarian here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So talk a little bit about like kind of how you got here. And then we're going to talk about the fabulous, what we're going to talk about. So.
Yeah. The banned book display. So I am a new librarian. This is my second year as a librarian. I am a product of the community college system myself.
Where'd you go to community college at?
I went to Berkeley City College.
Oh, well, we'll let you in here. That's okay.
Yeah. I have a lot of friends that came to DVC.
Yeah.
And in fact, like I do a lot of teaching here through library workshops and instructions embedded in classes. And I often introduce myself as a community college alum in a Bay Area, born and raised person. And to let my students know that I work in the community college very intentionally. Out of all of the experience I had going to UC Berkeley, going to San Jose State for my master's, community college at Berkeley City College was like the best experience I had. I met such incredible faculty and staff. There's such a beautiful community that comes from such diverse backgrounds at the community college. So I'm a big, I love community college.
Well, and I can say this for DVC is that we have such amazing staff or amazing faculty here, I should say, is that, I mean, they are some of them on, at least, if not better than some of the, Stanford and Berkeley and things like that. Because the thing is they come here to teach on purpose because they don't want to do research. They want to actually work with students. So how did you end up getting into, so let's talk a little bit about how in the world did you get into library? Because now everybody goes, it's like, I want to be a doctor, an engineer, a librarian.
Yeah. This is actually a second career for me.
Oh.
I was in the, I worked as a medical assistant for 5 years. But I think deep down, I always wanted to work with books. A dream of mine as a child was to own my own bookstore. And when I was thinking about a career shift, one of the things that struck me was in the medical field, I had gotten into it to help people, but it was really actually so much more limited than I had expected it to be in the ways in which I could help and support people. And so when I was thinking about changing gears, I really wanted to work in libraries because I thought it was such an important community space and actually a really good space for being someone who's geared towards social justice and community support and engagement. So that's why I wanted to work in libraries.
And it's an interesting bent because I think, especially in the digital age, is that the struggle is to keep that power of a library. I know growing up, we didn't have digital nothing, but it was like, I mean, I went to the library to do everything. It's like, and like we look up stuff like scary stories about the local, ghost lore and stuff like that about, and it was fun. But the other thing too, is it gave me that power of being able to know that there was a place I could go and I could look up anything. There was no Google.
Yeah. Well, and what's interesting is, actually, I think nowadays with the information age and the expansion of the internet, there's actually more of a need for librarianship than ever before. Librarians are we're not just people who procure these community spaces, which in and of themselves are still so vital. Like the concept of a third space, a space that's not work or home, but is a community space that doesn't cost any money to be at, is so important still. But even as librarians, we're sort of information specialists and guides to information. And so when you have so much information, you actually need more people whose specialty it is to think about how you access that information, how you access it in intelligent ways that are really effective at dealing with misinformation and disinformation. So actually librarianship is like more important now than I think it ever was before.
I hadn't really thought of it that way, but you're absolutely right. Because the thing is, it doesn't get printed and you guys kind of act as the shepherds
Yeah.
and the stewards of information, actual information, as opposed to, it's like the man on the moon did this and that and all the other crazy stuff that's out there. So, and how have you found your time here at DVC?
It's been amazing. Last year, I filled in for Emily Moss, the instruction librarian. I was her sabbatical coverage, so I worked full time, and I got to do somewhere around 80 library workshops out in the whole year. So I got to meet so many students, like you said, so many incredible faculty. I'm constantly impressed with how DVC really does. It pushes for student success and excellence, but is also really socially aware and really keeps in mind social justice and all of these important questions of equity and whatnot.
Right.
So I've loved it.
So you said we're kind of off the rails a little bit.
Yeah.
Actually, that's what I love about doing this. It's like we get to talk about. So tell me, what in the world does a library workshop look like, or a library?
Yeah.
Please do tell me.
Yeah. So it's kind of a more recent trend in librarianship to really focus, when we do a workshop, not on just teaching how to use a particular library tool like a database, but to really teach it as information literacy. So like I was saying, we live in this information age, and being able to access and utilize information in a really smart way, in a way that is really useful for students, is kind of our focus and how we're reorienting. So an information literacy workshop might include something like, we learn about strategies for avoiding disinformation and misinformation. It might include things like learning about authority. What is authority? How do we consider authority when it comes to resources that we access? How do we make sure we hear all voices?
And when you're talking about authority, you're talking about we're not talking about down with the man. We're talking about specifically subject matter experts and things of that nature, correct?
Yeah. Well, when I teach a workshop on authority, I ask, what does it mean to you? And we have them complicated. So it's really not just like showing you how to use a database, but we try to teach in a way that really looks more expansively at information.
So I have a dumb question, just because this is like, I'm thinking about when I was a kid and going to it's like the Dewey Decimal System. We had to know how to work with that, look it up in the little cards. And I don't see any card library, little card things here, which is sure a great relief for you guys. But, is that even a part of it? Does the Dewey Decimal System still get used? For those that don't know, here, move over this way a little bit. So for those that don't know, the Dewey Decimal System is how us old people used to look up books.
Well, Dewey Decimal is still used, but it's mostly used in school libraries and I believe some public libraries. In college libraries, we use the Library of Congress classification system. And actually, teaching that to students, like often students come in here and they don't know how to find a book necessarily. And you can look it up in our catalog. You find this call number and then you kind of search amongst the stacks to find it. So
that's half the fun. I don't know. I was a big, I love just kind of getting lost off into the, oh my goodness, look at this. This is so much fun. And walk out with like 12 books and I was only looking for a more magazine article.
Yeah. Well, and one thing we're trying to do, we're doing a lot of shifting in the library. We just rewrote our mission, vision, values. So we're really focused on being student-centered, on equity, on collaboration. And one of the things we want to do is create a more browsable library. So we're getting soon these like kind of more bookstore-esque displays where you can have like a subject and go browse that subject. So we're working on kind of reinvigorating that browsability, because I agree it's a really fun part.
And I think what's happened is, and I have to admit that I'm as guilty as the next person, is that because I can just look it up on my phone or look it up on my computer. Oh, there we go. Yeah. Whereas again, now I'm thinking, now I'm going to have to come in and like go and browse the library. But half the fun is that finding the books around the one that you were looking at. Oh my gosh, this is like 12 by the same author. It's like, oh, didn't even know about that one. And then all of a sudden you're down some rabbit hole, but it's always a fun one.
Well, and it's funny, I don't know if you want to do this, but the transition, this makes a nice transition, because one thing we try to do is organize displays too, so that when you come in, you can have that experience in different ways. So for instance, we're doing this Contra Costa Wide community read of a novel, James.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
By Percival Everett. And the display right around the corner has a whole shelf that's just a bunch of his other books. So like you said, you can come in the library, be like, oh, what's this community read? And then go, oh, what are all these other books by this author that I enjoyed reading a book by?
Yeah, I'm thinking about there's a spoken word poet. Oh my gosh, his name escapes me. And I actually got onto him because I heard him do a take of it was a Robert Johnson song, and he did a particular song. I thought he wrote it, it's like, oh, he's a poet. Then all of a sudden I started discovering all this other stuff, and I'm like, oh my goodness. So that is the power of YouTube in that respect. But to your point is now you have this display of all these things that the author's written, and it's like, oh my goodness. Yeah. And I did see that. We're going to go around and we're going to talk about that for a minute.
Right.
So, and I'll figure out how to splice that in. My editing skills are getting better. So, so the main reason that I remember you sent out a thing last week, and it was for National Book Ban Week, which, okay, I read it, and the first thing I'm thinking, are we nationally trying to ban books, or what's the deal? So I have my own take on that, which, it's like, I mean, I've read books I didn't like for a variety of reasons, but I didn't feel the need to, sit out in the middle of the road and burn it or anything like that.
Yeah.
But let's talk about a little bit about like kind of, first of all, like book bans in general, like where are we going with that?
Yeah.
This took a dark turn, didn't it? So,
I know, and the display kind of looks dark.
Yeah, well, we'll kind of get to that in a moment. But talk a little bit about kind of like what the impetus was that, and kind of what brought that forward for you.
Yeah, so just a little bit of background. National Banned Books Week. It's not about banning books, but it's about but it is a confusion for many people. It's really about highlighting the reality of the attempt to censor and ban access to certain types of books and titles. So it was established in 1982 in response to a surge of attempts to censor and ban certain titles and texts in libraries. And so one of the things that spurred our library this year to really want to highlight this is that we're currently facing a new onslaught of book bans. So since like 2021, we've seen a huge spike in different groups. I think it's over 70% of the attempts to censor or ban books are by political figures or school boards or administrators or particular groups that have a political goal in mind towards this. Very few are by actual like parents or concerned community members. So we are trying to bring light to this and actually challenge the banning and challenging of books.
So, and I know that and I'll give you a chance to talk about this in a minute, but I just want to say what caught my attention on was one, it was the banned books, what are we trying to do? Yeah. But the other part of it too was some of the titles on it were like Fahrenheit 451, which I mean, that was a brilliant book that I read back, decades ago. And there was, 1984, which, I mean, that definitely has some, Animal Farm was another one, which these are political statements at a time when, now it's just like, and there were some other ones. And I looked at a list, and we'll talk about your list in a moment, but I just kind of was like interested, it's like, what's the most banned? I Googled it. So yes, Google is good for some stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
But the most banned book in the United States was A Clockwork Orange, which I thought was absolutely just amazing. And then there was Breathless, Sold, which actually looks like a really interesting book.
Yeah.
Very, very dark. And for those that don't know, that's about a young lady who gets, at 13 years old, gets sold into slavery, we'll just say, keep it the PG version. And there's a few others that are, LGBTQ. There was, here we go. This is one last night at the Telegraph Club, which was set in 1954, which would explain why it was probably somewhat controversial, but, but then it goes on. There was one, what was the one that I brought up that you said, oh my gosh, Wicked was one. I was surprised by that. Yeah. It's like, wait, I thought that was the fun one where Disney was, it's like, how come that was? And then
Well, to be fair, I haven't read Wicked myself, but the people I know that have read it say that it's even more, has more political themes and undertones than in the book, than in the play or the movie.
Well, yeah, but see, the thing is all the Wizard of Oz books were very political.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people don't, because they see Dorothy and the MGM version of it. It's
Right.
like, and then they see the kind of the sanitized version. They don't realize what a political statement it was. But what was the book that I said? There was one that you said was the most...
Oh, All Boys Aren't Blue. I think is the most banned book of last year.
Okay.
With almost, I think it's 39 attempts at banning or challenging the book.
Any particular state leading the way?
Oh, God. For that book in particular, I can't remember. I think I saw I found a really good website that I can provide the link for. They gave a timeline of the attempts to challenge and ban this book. And I remember a couple of stories were highlighted in Texas and Florida. And in one circumstance that really struck me, so what happens with these challenged books is one of these organizations or an individual poses a challenge, says we should remove this from a library. And then usually you have a process that the library goes through or the school district or the board, and then they rule on it. And in one of the circumstances, the review process determined that it wouldn't be removed from shelves, and one school administrator was able to pull it permanently from shelves, even following that determination.
This particular book, Not All Boys Were Blue.
Yeah, Not All Boys. I believe that's the full title.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I know, and I read that. Sorry, I jumped ahead.
All Boys Aren't Blue for the accurate.
And I remember seeing that on the list, and I was like kind of going, hey, and I guess it's because it's kind of a coming of age story about boys kind of basically finding out that they're gay and kind of exploring that, which can be, being a teenager is brutal enough. And then you add on top of that, it's like, because teens are always so kind to each other.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, that was sarcasm, in case anybody noticed. But and it can be a brutal environment to grow up in. And then on top of that, you get, whether, especially in certain communities, they're not going to be very accepting of that. So, let's talk about, so this is what kind of caught my eye too, because I came in here and I snuck in here last week when I was trying to load. So you have some books here that you, here, we'll go like this. There we go. That way you get to be in the site. So you what I thought was interesting is you wrapped them up, caution, banned book. And that was kind of fun.
Yeah.
Do you have like a list that I can publish that shows which the books that you have wrapped up? And I can drop it in the comments, but
sure. Yeah, I can do that. I would challenge people to come in and unwrap a book.
Oh, okay.
So the idea for this display came from the American Library Association. It's essentially our librarians' professional organization nationwide. And they had a few book display ideas. And this is sort of a popular in a lot of college libraries concept is a blind date with a book. You get I
like it.
You get some information about the book from the outside, and then you get to pick it up and unwrap it and see what you picked. So what I did for these is I gave the reasons on the outside for why this book has been challenged or banned. And then I also wanted to include a little more information. Some of these are graphic novels, and that's not my style of book. So I wanted to have some information. So I have the genre or a genre or two on there too, so that you have an idea of what you're picking. But the idea is pick a book based on its banned, the reasons it was banned.
Yeah, I think what we'll do is we'll drop just a note, these are some of the books, and then the invitation to come in, because I like that idea, date with a banned book.
Yeah.
Kind of you could even have a little cubicle they could come in and sneak in there so nobody sees them. So, and so as we move forward, and then we'll go around the corner and we'll go talk about James, the book James, because I do want to talk about that a bit. I know that's a big deal. I think he was coming or did come to LMC to come speak.
So he's coming November 8th. He's going to come to Los Medanos College. This is Percival Everett, the author of the book. It's going to be, he's really blowing up right now. Very famous, popular writer. I've read a couple of his books. He's really witty and funny.
Oh.
I've also watched some of his interviews, and it's just always incredible. So we have this rare opportunity to have him in person at Los Medanos College on November 8th from 11 to 1.
Okay, and I'll drop that in the notes also, and then that way, people, if they want tickets or whatever, I imagine it's going to be.
Yeah, there is a registration link, and all of the information is also found on the library. DVC Library has a events page now, so you can find the information about those events too.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's hold. Well, we're going to cut around to the corner, and then we'll come wrap up over here. But
okay, we'll come back to banned books because I did have a comment to feed off of what you were saying earlier about LGBTQ identities and all boys aren't blue. To me, this is a really important topic. You can see on the top 10 books that were banned in the last year, the majority of them were attempted to be banned because of LGBTQ plus content, particularly conversations about gender identity, queerness, transness. And I am non-binary and queer. And as a young person, I really didn't have so much community at first. And coming into a library and running into books that acknowledged certain identities blew my mind and really created a space for me to find my identity and find community. So I really want to make sure that those stories are available to students, not so they have to seek them out, but they can find them, run into them at the library. And that's why it's so important.
And actually, that's a really good segue because this was how I was going to wrap, but we're not wrapping. We're not wrapping things.
All right.
Well, so this is, and again, for me, there's many things that, it's like I don't care about. One of the things I care about the most is that people can think that it's okay to ban books.
Right.
And the reason is that I think for me, it's just like, the First Amendment was the First Amendment for a reason.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, there should be, there could be a parental warning on it. That's fine.
Yeah.
However, and that's to make us old people kind of feel slightly less uncomfortable because that's part of what, when you get old like me, it's just like most of your life is uncomfortable. Oh my God, those darn kids. But my thing is, I think that is a very important point is that you found a place to learn about your community in a way that was both safe. You weren't going to get yelled at for it. Yeah. And oh my gosh, there's people that think and it just is like an amazing bolt of lightning, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And what was that like? What was the first book where was there a book or a couple of books where you went, oh my gosh, these are the ones that are talking to me?
Off the top of my head, the first books, I just remember seeing titles in the library. I think I saw the title of Middlesex, something like that. And it just made me think. But more recently, I was actually at a public library and there was a book at the Berkeley Public Library and a book was faced out and the title was Am I Trans Enough? And I was like, what a clever title, because now I want to know.
Yeah.
And I picked up the book and it was like, it made me think about my own gender identity in so many different ways that I'd never thought about. I pass it on to students now, when it is appropriate. And so that kind of experience, I think, is just
well, and
so
I do think that experience is unbelievably important. I think that there do need to be books out there that make people very uncomfortable and have a discussion and go, I don't know about this. And and again, Fahrenheit 451. I'm going to go back to my, the Diary of Anne Frank. There was Go Ask Alice. I remember doing a book report on it I think it was in seventh grade. So this was like early 70s. And my English teacher had a problem with it. She was absolutely just thought that, this was not a book that was appropriate for a seventh grader to read. Because there was a lot of drug theme and sex and all the other stuff. And my mom had to come in and basically defend me, which thank goodness she was an English teacher at one point in her life.
Great.
But I guess the point is that, there are always going to be books that make people uncomfortable.
Yes.
And that's where I think the library can create that environment where, to house that, where, everything from all over the spectrum is like is something that speaks to people and kind of explains it. And I think there's also needs to be a place for views that you don't agree with.
Yeah.
to be housed, because at the end of the day, it's we need to defend the right for somebody to say something we don't like.
Yes.
And oftentimes people lose track of that. So,
Yeah.
Maybe that loud. Okay, so I'm getting off down the rabbit hole. So I do want to go around. Let's go talk about James. So, all right, and we are over here for Percival Everett. So talk a little bit about who he is. I mean, if you can kind of explain a little bit about.
Yeah, so Percival Everett is an author, mostly fiction writing, and a lot of his books deal with themes of race and society. He is a Black man. I've listened to some really interesting interviews with him, though, where he kind of challenges this idea of like African American or Black literature. He has stories where he like submitted a book to publishers and they said, well, what does this have to do with African American literature? And he was like, it's just a book I wrote. Why is this being asked of me?
It's a book. I'm Black. It's like,
yes.
Yeah.
So, he's a really interesting writer. And the book we're reading as part of this Contra Costa County-wide reading program is James.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they can check it out here at this library.
Yes. So I think at this library, we may have 1 or 2 more physical copies. We also have 4 ebook copies that people can check out through the DVC library. The public libraries, the Contra Costa public libraries, have a ton of physical ebook, audiobook copies, so you can check them out through there too. Do you want me to talk a little bit about James?
Yes, and actually, I'm seeing some of the other ones. These were banned books also. Huckleberry Finn, Tom Sawyer.
So this is perfect.
And then we'll get back to James. Sorry, it's again, like I said, we kind of go.
Yeah, this is why this is here. So James is a retelling of the classic story Huckleberry Finn.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
So what Percival Everett did was center the story in James around Jim, the enslaved character in the story.
Right. I'm trying to remember what well, I know what he was called, and we're not going to say that. But anyways, but no, it's like I remember reading that as a kid, and I think I was in high school at that point, and that was one of the things that even in the 70s, the teacher said, "Hey, you got to watch the language." Yeah. But it's still a brilliant piece of literature, Yeah.
Well, and this book came out, I believe, last year. It became a bestseller. People are talking about it being a new classic. And Everett's really tried to emphasize that he didn't mean to necessarily write a book that cancels out Huckleberry Finn. He says he really wants to be in conversation with Huckleberry Finn. And he just sees this as an opportunity to round out the character and give the enslaved character a lot more
nuance.
Yes,
well,
exactly.
And the thing is too, is because he actually was a very important character in the book.
Yeah.
So he wasn't just some person thrown in there just to, but he was a very important character in that book and as part of Huckleberry Finn's journey. And now you've convinced me. I'll probably go out and buy it just to give him a couple nickels.
Yeah.
But that sounds like really good. But I think, so we have a couple others down here, which I think are very interesting.
Yeah.
And then we'll get back. So Much Blue.
So these books from this shelf to here are Percival Everett's other books that he wrote. Not all of them.
So what were the 2 that you've read? Because you said you read 2.
Well, I've read James, and then I recently read Trees.
Okay.
Or The Trees. I always call it Trees, but my partner always reminds me it's Trees.
I spend half my time. My wife has explained to me how now it's that. I said, all right, princess. Anyways.
Trees is it's actually a horror novel.
Really?
And the premise is that in these places where historic lynchings happened, there are these sort of hauntings that are happening. So it's really interesting. It's also, I would say, like one of my favorite things about Everett is the discussion of these intense topics, but then also with this like twinge of satire and comedy. So he's really clever. It's like very witty, all of the way he tells these stories.
I'm going to have to check that out because the thing is again, I think that comedy and satire especially can be a really good way to explore very uncomfortable pieces of our history, you
Yeah.
know, and it's one of those things where I think that we often lose sight of that.
I think sometimes comedy is really a way to take your power back too. When
Mm-hmm.
you're in an oppressed, when you're part of oppressed minority or identity, making fun, teasing a little bit can be a good way to reclaim some of your power.
Well, and the jester was always the one that was able to make fun of the king if they were good at it. If they were really good at it, then they got to keep their head through the entire thing. So not to say I'm advocating for that.
Oh, one other book to highlight in this is Erasure. I actually haven't read the novel, but it's the novel is what the movie American Fiction is based on.
Oh.
This was a major motion picture that came out in 2023.
Okay.
And the premise is, people have said they think it's kind of based on Percival Everett's own experience, because it's a writer in the story who is being told that his writing isn't quote unquote black enough.
I saw the very beginning of it, and I never got a chance to finish it just because, you know, we get a million other things on Netflix and stuff. So I'm going to have to, but the actor that plays in this, I absolutely love.
Yeah, he's great.
He's amazing.
Yeah.
So now it's like, that's going to go on our watch list. So I think Shelley and I are going to have a chance to do. So we've introduced, so we're definitely going to check these out. So let's talk briefly about Down Here.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can get a.
Yeah. So these down this row are kind of, collected some literary commentary on either, I think over here is mostly conversation about Huckleberry Finn. So this one's like the Jim dilemma, reading race in Huckleberry Finn. This one's satire or evasion, black perspectives on Huckleberry Finn. And so that's what this is. And then these were books that highlighted either information about Percival Everett or had like a short story included in it.
All right. So let's go ahead and have you take us out. So one of the things I wanted to talk about a little bit is, you know, we have the whole banned book thing, which for a variety of reasons, I find absolutely offensive. So tell me about, like, in a community, us civilians, it's like, how do we combat that and how do we watch out for that? What's that look like?
Yeah, I think one of the things I really wanted to focus on with this is the importance of supporting our libraries. You know, the people who are pushing these bans, like I said, are outside political forces and organizations. And right now, particularly libraries across the board are facing attacks on funding, on public support. So really finding ways to support your library, your local public library, or in the case of the DVC library, we do have a fund, and the more we can raise funds through that, the more we can bolster and strengthen our organization. And these librarians are the ones really trying to push for increased access to information.
I just had this vision of mild-mannered librarians like you with the glasses on and stuff, standing out there with the shield and the armor and stuff like that, protecting our books.
Well,
really.
And I also want to say, not just librarians, community activists and organizers also supporting those organizations, and supporting, looking at intersectionality and supporting each other in all of our different struggles. I've talked about my experience as a queer person and the importance of queer literature for me, but also a lot of the banned books have to do with race, with diversity, with ethnicity, and really important themes that are also important for us to kind of stand together in solidarity to support.
And really, these are books that are coming under attack because it's easier to take folks that are maybe marginalized to some degree and attack those books and say, oh, no, when the reality is we shouldn't be embracing those folks and those books.
Yeah. I mean, we live in a society with a lot of historic inequalities, and I think we've seen in recent years attempts to combat that, to try and transform it, to highlight equity, to highlight really addressing problems of racial discrimination, of LGBTQ rights. And often there can be backlashes when people try to organize and fight for those things. So I think an important thing for us to do, and maybe for me as an educator and a librarian, is to try and find ways to stand up. against that.
So if anybody wants to, find out, we'll have notes on the banned books and we'll figure out some clever way to get people involved in that, because that's cool. We'll also have some notes on how to come to the talk by Percival
Everett.
Yeah. And the other thing too is, what if somebody wants to have a question about the library, or they want to help support the library? How would they get a hold of you?
Yeah, you can contact me directly. My name's Eden Foley. So my email for DVC is efoley, Foley @dvc.edu. We also have a new and beautiful website. So if you go to, I usually teach students, you just Google DVC Library. Our homepage will pop up there. And in there is a section about donations and how to support the library. If you're faculty or staff, you can set up a monthly donation to our fund. We have a Friends of the Library fund. So really reach out to us if you're alumni and you want to make sure that our library stays strong and continues to be a really important resource to students. We could really use donations to the Friends of the Library Fund.
And we'll put a link in the show description to kind of like, this is how you get a hold of the library.
Yeah.
Well, Eden, thank you so much for taking a little time out and talking to her, because I was like thoroughly, oh my gosh, this is like the most interesting thing ever. It's like, oh, hey.
Yeah.
So, and we'll wrap this all up, and this will actually, I think this is going to hit the airwaves probably just before Halloween, which makes it extra scary, right?
Yeah. I liked that, doing it in accordance with like October and spooky months.
Yes. And that was kind of my thing. It's like, I just did one last week that just hit, that was done with an alumni who's now an archaeologist, and she's doing a project she's helping out the Martinez Cemetery, which is the oldest cemetery in Contra Costa County.
Wow.
And so they're doing some restoration and cleaning it up and stuff like that.
Cool.
So yeah, October is going to be scary month. So
cool.
All right. Well, again, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning in to DVC Alumni, where every story inspires the next, the podcast for the DVC Alumni Association. You can contact us at alumni@dvc.edu with any comments, and be sure to leave a like and subscribe to our podcast.